Anything to paint? No? Nothing? Okay. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Game Hub. I'm your host, GamerK, and it is time for another game review. It's game review month, evidently, in June. And it's my father's 60th birthday. So, to celebrate the awesome man he is, I've decided to go over one of his favorite mediums for his birthday, and that would be retro Disney, especially Mickey Mouse, his favorite character, and the second adventure of Mickey outside of Kingdom Hearts. And also when he went through that mirror in GameCube, and that weird Castle of Illusions. But this is definitely his second best. Last year, I reviewed the Epic Mickey 1 and gave it pretty good reviews, commenting kind of on its lengthy gameplay, its platforming, its lack of backtracking, and just the incredible amount of fun I had playing through the game, experiencing this retro world, and also the boss battles. So does the Epic Mickey, the power of two, with 2 times the fun, 2 times the playability, does it keep up the amazing artistry that the first game was known for? Well, let's dive into this masterpiece and see if we can thin out some of the rough edges. So the game opens up with a musical number by the Mad Doctor. There has been an earthquake in Wasteland, and Oswald doesn't really trust the Mad Doctor. Oh, also, So basically, he sends out a message to Mickey saying to come back to Wasteland so he can help out. One thing I love about the improvement that they made in this game is that they finally put in voice acting. And who could voice Oswald the Lucky Rabbit in his first vocal appearance than Frank Welker, ladies and gentlemen? That's right, Megatron, Scooby-Doo, and freaking Fred Jones. Man, he does 2 Scooby-Doo voices. Anyway, awesome actor. So, I gotta admit, did a great job portraying Oswald. So, the game is all about kind of figuring out what's going on in Wasteland. And, yeah, there's some obvious things that you can kind of put together by the first act. So, the game came out in 2012, so 2 years after the first game. It's basically a puzzle-solving, platforming game with a little bit of action here and there. And the action kind of is basic paint the enemies, thin them, or spin attack. Not only that, but this game, because it's called The Power of Two, you now get co-op if you are so inclined to play with a friend. The second player will play as Oswald, where his abilities will be to throw his foot like a boomerang. Mickey can grab onto his legs and fly around with his ears for gliding abilities. And his remote control to hack into electrical devices, shut down switches, and reprogram robotic enemies. So, it's good that they gave him his own ability set, because in most games, when they do a co-op like this, they just have the other character just be there just to be there, or make it an exact duplicate of the main character, which serves no purpose for the story whatsoever. So, yeah. But overall, you don't really need a second player in order to play. Oswald will be on computer. And it's actually pretty smart. Does things when you need it to, and some things when you don't want it to. So the game does involve heavily on choice, like in the first game. Whether it's which path you take, which choices you make in each side quest. A good majority of it is good. It earns you pins. Some of them will earn you achievements. But enough about that. The story is basically finding out the mystery of the Mad Doctor's big scheme, finding out a saboteur in Wasteland, which, all honesty, I kind of saw through immediately. Not only that, but it's just common sense in this game. I mean, anyone who's familiar with the first game could kind of see it coming. Although, some things I will give the game. The gameplay is heavily improved with a couple new enemies, a couple new abilities with the sketches. I don't really, unless it's for a puzzle or to make things easier, I don't really use the sketches that much. And also, they've eliminated the non-backtracking. So in this game, you are allowed to backtrack, because if you're going to build a wonderful world like this, why wouldn't you want to go back and just enjoy it? And the levels in this game are beautifully done. You feel the Disney magic in each world with the color schemes and the throwbacks to old Disney World attractions that were sadly removed because they got too old or they were just scrapped. And heavily of that is developed within the game itself. So the art directors took a lot of time to make sure every bit of gameplay is Disney magic. Now, going to the gameplay, the puzzles are pretty fun. It takes a while to get to do some of them. You will either use paint in order to get through the good ending, or you'll use thinner to get through the bad ending, which I always go for paint because I'm just that kind of player. The entire game is really fun. It employs a lot of platforming, which at times can get annoying, but it's still overall fun. Environment manipulation is once again back, but again improved. Oh, not only that, but the side quests have been improved. Not only can each side quest be done in one of two ways, but you really got to pay attention of what you shouldn't do if you're going for that good ending. So being kind to all the characters is heavily important, which I enjoy. Like, a ghost wants you to destroy the forge and bog easy, so it gives you a gag gear in order to give him, just for the laughs. I, for one, don't do that. I sell that gear for scrap. Once again, currency in the game is by e-tickets and scrap metal. You can use scrap metal in order to do side quest objectives and just to trade them in for other items. But again, the side quests in this game are amazing. Whether it's helping Donald get his boat suit up to go on a date with Daisy, finding a great assistant for Horace. Even throughout the main game, the quests reflect on what you do. For example, if you befriend every single spatter in Blot Alley, Ghost Ian will help you out later on. And if you help out Pete Tronic, he doesn't become a bad guy. So again, the side quests are varied. Let me check my notes. There's about over 10 side missions to do, and that's not including finding the bunny children, collecting every single. And yes, they did this in Disney, so why wouldn't they do it in this game? Hidden Mickeys and hidden Oswalds throughout the entire game. Just gonna say this, Epic Mickey 2 did it first, Kingdom Hearts 3. They did the hidden Mickeys first. The environments, again, are beautiful. The story, like I said, is interesting in concept. However, once you start getting halfway through the game, it can become a big chore. And like I said, choices make a big part of it. For example, in the float yard, right before you get to the boss of that section, in order to get there, you have two options. You can either it's kind of in a Alice in Wonderland themed area where Alice is stuck. You have to use the invisible ink, which dissipates as you move, in order to get past a sensor eye, in order to get for the good boss battle. And then if you destroy the house to get back, you'll end up with the bad boss battle. And once again, the boss battles all have a gimmick where if you use paint, they'll become good. If you use thinner, it will be bad. Just like in the original ones, which I enjoy. Anyway, going back to the levels. The levels are surprisingly entertaining. They, again, added more into what they already had via Blot Alley, which I can kind of see as being a part of the Haunted Mansion level. They have Fort Wasteland, which is a gag on Ventureland. The Disney Gulch, which I have no clue what it's based on. The Float Yard, which is a term on the graveyard. So all the old floats, all the old mechanisms, all the old animatronics are thrown in there just as a graveyard. And it's done very, very beautifully for a cemetery setting. And the dioramas are fun. It depicts 3 major events throughout the first game, which I love. And interacting with them and getting them to work again is beyond amazing. It's just, again, it's Disney magic through and through. Unfortunately, like I said, you can collect pins in this game. Just like in the first one, depending on how you handle things, what you collect, you'll get different pins regarding different activities. Now, that's practically the good stuff. Where does this game go wrong and make me say it was alright? For start off, the game is incredibly short at 3 chapters. And I mean, yeah, you get to go through a whole bunch of areas and collect stuff and go throughout each section of the level, but it's still only 3 chapters. 3 chapters is not enough for a sequel game. Not only that, but the new amount of villains, the new amount of enemies are drastically underdone. They took out some of the blotlings, brought in one new one that is barely fun to fight. They didn't even do any type of new beetle works, which I enjoyed because of the paint armor of the robotics. The blot works, the new, which are just cycloptic spatters controlling mechanized robots. There's 3 of them for a new game, for a sequel game, for a new enemy, and you only put 3 of it. I don't get it. There was so much ideas that could have been thrown out here, and they didn't do it, which sucks. Not only does it end at 3 chapters and only 3 new types of enemies, but the boss battles, the thing I praised about in the first game, the boss battles that I wanted to praise so much because of their creativity and how you handle them. There are 3 bosses in this game. 3, including the final boss. So literally at the end of each chapter, you get basically what you want. 1 boss battle at the end of each boss. 1 boss battle at the end of each chapter. And yeah, it's basically simple. Use paint, use thinner, and you'll either destroy them or befriend them. And yeah, I even befriended the final boss, which, again, I just love a good ending. I don't like bad endings in games. What else? But yeah, everything in this game it's great, but it just seems like there could have been more. And there was. At the end, once you beat the game, there is a hint that they were going to do a number 3. And it's even kind of indicated in the level before the final boss. Like, if you explore a little bit and do a couple things, it kind of shows that there was going to be more for Epic Mickey 3. Unfortunately, that got scrapped. Alright, so basically the entire game as a whole is 9.5 hours long. For a game like this, that's a pretty good amount of time. And for all you completionists out there, if you're going to want to do every single achievement, it's going to take you, I think, multiple playthroughs. Accustomed to multiple play times, it's going to take you 21.5 hours for a completionist to go through the game. But Overall, the game is enjoyable. It makes you feel, again, like you're playing through Disney nostalgia, Disney magic. Also, one other thing they added, when you could go through the projectors in the game in order to progress through the levels, they added something where you can switch to have, there's an upper part and a lower part for Mickey and Oswald to go through. You can go together, or you can each do the separate one. So if you're playing co-op, I'd suggest doing the separate sections. That way you can collect more items. And then, for some reason, anytime you kind of pick the thinner route to go through in this game, you will be given the DEC, Dial Engineering Corridors, which are pretty much like the projector segments, except all 3D, and just gives you a weird background to traverse through and kind of do a puzzle as well while you traverse it. It's creative, but I don't find myself doing all of them. But yeah, the entire game is beautifully done. It's crafted seemingly to perfection. Unfortunately, there are some parts of the game I wish were handled better. Like 3 chapters? Really? After the long segments that we had in the first game, in the sequel you decide to cheap out and just do 3. 3. I know I like things in odd numbers, but sometimes it needs to be more than 5. Could have been more than 5 chapters. They could have done more. Not only that, but they got rid of Tomorrow City. One of my favorite levels in the first game because Tomorrowland was my favorite part of Magic Kingdom. There's no futuristic stuff. They could have improved on it. With the enemies that they could have gone with, they could have had a sick boss battle there. But no, all that good stuff was done for the first game. Instead, we get Autotopia, which is practically based on basically that raceway in Toontown, which isn't there anymore, sadly. But I'm just gonna say this: it just feels like they put so much energy into making this game. Basically what it is. It's just a great game to experience as Oswald again and Mickey, but they kind of just downgraded how beautiful it looks. The overall story just makes you feel like you're just going through the motions and just waiting for the next section. But once again, all I gotta say, once you beat the game, there are tons of side quests to do, so I mean, if you do a majority of them during the game, that helps too. So overall, a great sequel. The graphics and gameplay and the scenery is beautiful and highly elevated from the last game where it was kind of dark and muddy. This one's bright and beautiful, and I love that about this game. The gameplay is sound, and there's not really that big issues with the computer controlling Oswald. Boss battles, while short in amount, they're actually pretty fun to do, and figuring it out is half the fun. I just wish there was more in the game, more side quests that just didn't make you feel like you were just backtracking between multiple areas. Like, if a good amount of the side missions were to just stay focused on the section where the character is, it would have been beautiful. However, that's not much of a problem. It just feels like it is. Not only that, but the choice of the game, of the sections in any part of the game, makes you feel like the mission is shorter or longer. Or it leads to a new section, or it leads to a new side quest, and some don't. Some don't. And collecting the pins is fun, but it just feels like it's just a chore. It doesn't feel like it's fun like it was in the first game. So overall, Epic Mickey 2 is a creative idea that instills that magic in it. Unfortunately, once you peel back all the layers and layers of paint, it just feels like it's an unfinished unfinished a bit. But it's still fun. It just feels like the story is unfinished. The scenery and everything is beautiful from afar, but once you get right down to it and peel it all away, you just realize it's just bare bones. So the final verdict for Epic Mickey 2, The Power of Two, I debated about this. It's a 7 out of 10. It's not an amazing game like the first one was. I mean, given my criticisms. It's not a bad game, but it's in the middle. And that's where I find that this game has its right spot. In the middle. It's not something that was so astounding that they decided to make another one, but it did the original game justice and gave these long-lost brothers a well-deserved epic adventure. That's it for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe down below. And coming next week, it's time for another video game where I ain't afraid of no ghost. This is GamerK, logging out.